Welcome to the horoscope.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Forget you.
You are under dark beneath.
Here's Johnny.
It's all for you.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the horoscope. This show is something that kind of started off as a little idea in a group inbox, and then I was like, no, this shit's really happening. And so we kind of rolled it, and now we're here, which is really exciting. So throughout this podcast, all the episodes, we're going to be discussing all sorts of different topics, everything to do with horror, because we're all slightly obsessed. My name is George, and my other two co-hosts can introduce themselves right now.
Hello, my name is Ben. I am very, very excited to start talking all things horror with these two relics that I have in this podcast.
Wow, thank you so much.
Oh, that was polite.
Lovely.
Well, you know, as being a relic, my name is Yutaka. I am also a lover of the genre of horror, as I say it over here in the States, because, you know, we say it correctly.
It's horror. God's sake, get it right. But yes, on today's premiere episode, we were originally going to be talking about getting a little bit of introduction and getting to talk about our favorite horror movies. But then we were like, oh, wait, Friday, just gone, was the release of the Fear Street 1994, part 1 of this trilogy of exciting films that Netflix is dropping for us. And so we thought, well, it's only right that we start with our first review of this film. So we're going to be talking about what we liked, what we didn't like, the themes within it, what we want to see next from it, you know, what the next two movies are going to bring, and just everything to do with Fear Street. And then at the end, because of course it is based on the books by R.L. Stine, we will be talking about our other favorite horror movie adaptations, which is going to be really exciting to see, because there's a lot of them I don't think you realize until you actually look and you go, oh wait, there is a lot of horror film adaptations from books that aren't just Stephen King. So without further ado, let's delve into this review. So Yutaka, why don't you go first, because I know that you're familiar with the source
Books.
material.
Yes. I am old enough that I have read these, and I remember them as a teen. And so I thought, okay, I'll go in with an open mind, because I'll be the first to say I'm not a big fan of adaptations. And so they certainly took liberties in this, which I don't mind, because they were fun. But they still stayed true to the whole Fear Street saga and The Witch, which was so much fun. And overall, I really enjoyed it. Loved the characters. Also, that whole surprise LGBTQ plus, like I was not expecting that, and I loved that. The kills were gory. You got invested in the characters. I really thought you got time for that. And I think the biggest highlight, though, and this is because I'm, grew up in the 80s and 90s, the soundtrack was incredible. Oh my God, the opening had 3-4 different bands that I was like, okay, all right, I'm here for this. So overall, I would say I loved it. I'd give it a 9 out of 10 for horror, because that's how much I enjoyed it.
I also thought it was amazing. It's the type of movie, if I made a horror movie, it's what I'd like to make. It's an incredible throwback. You get a great feeling, incredible atmosphere in this film. Small town America, 1990s. You really get the feeling of dread, and they do that very well. I do have to say, I thought the plot was very similar to Scary Stories with The Witch and Sarah Bellows. There was a lot of familiarity, but I understand they're similar by nature. However, this story was different, and it was really, really cool. I loved the throwbacks to old horror films where it was either Maya Hawke being the Drew Barrymore in the opening, which I thought was really cool. The different visual throwbacks to Halloween, Scream, Friday the 13th. They did that all really well. It was just enough on the nose that it was not a ripoff. And the story as well took from all of them, but it was also had its own sense of originality so that it did not take from them and it was not a ripoff. I really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait. I think it's an incredible experiment for Netflix to do, releasing a trilogy over the span of 3 weeks. I cannot wait to see what part two brings. The cast for that also, another Stranger Things actress, really, really cool to see her get some work. And the lead in this film, the girl, does anyone have the actress's name?
I do. I've got them all written down because I am what? Prepared.
Mm.
So
Which lead? There were two. You got Dina or Sam?
Dina.
Dina is played by Kiana Madeira. Madeira. Madeir. If she's listening, I'm sorry. Kiana Madeira.
Very well. I watched her in a show called Trinkets a few years ago, and I thought she was incredible in it. And I was so worried that I never saw her in anything else. She never got cast in anything. But then when I saw her in this movie, I was so happy and so relieved because she finally got a chance to show off her incredible acting skills, which she does have.
No, I agree. I think the cast as a whole was a really strong cast. I feel in terms of the story, I really enjoyed it. Again, I think it was really fun. It was something that you can definitely want that you watch with friends. It's not, it's your not. I don't like to use the word cheesy, but it's your classic 90s. Late 80s horror slasher style film, which you know exactly what you're going to get with that. But I think with this as well, because it paid homage at times, overtly homage to Scream, but I think it was overall just really fun. Like I would sit with if friends were like, "Oh, let's watch a film," I'd be like, "Let's watch, Fear Street," because it's not, terrifying. It's more about the story, the characters. Say the music was amazing, and I loved the opening intro. There's nothing I love more than an abandoned anything. I mean, they did all of the cliches in this. We had the mall, we had the school, the hospital, we had, all of them were in there. So I think it was really nice to and I think that always helps with these types of things, is going, this, it's the nostalgia, like with what Stranger Things did, it's that nostalgic, those nostalgic thoughts that get you to really enjoy the show. Character wise, I enjoyed Dina. I thought she was a really interesting character. Dina and Sam's relationship I really liked. Standouts for me though was Dina's brother Josh, who I thought was just so funny. I thought it was a brilliant character. Although I do have one thing which I will touch on in a minute. And I really liked the friends as well, Sam and Kate. I felt like they all had although obviously you kind of knew that Dina and Sam were sort of the two main girls. I feel like they did a great job with Josh and Kate and Simon to have them to feel like it was a group dynamic, like it wasn't, an obvious. Because at points I was like, who's gonna survive and who's gonna die here? And when the people did die, spoilers, I was very annoyed, which is what you want to be. But I was like,
because you cared about them.
Yes, like let me tell you, Kate is an icon that needs to be. She was just I absolutely loved her.
That broke my heart. She. Well, we'll talk in my pros and cons, but yes. I'll let you finish that thought.
But yeah, overall, I'd say I think just the characters, the whole thing it was just a lot of, like I said to you, it was a lot of fun and I enjoyed watching it and I'm really looking the next time trailer, I was like, damn, this looks even better. But yeah, overall, I definitely think it's a strong film. I'm interested to see how it all ties together in the end. But I would probably give it, there's a couple of things again I'll talk about when we get to pros and cons. I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. It was a lot of fun.
Okay.
Great music, but there's just something lacking for me.
Ben, what did you out of 10? What would you rate it?
I'd probably go 7.5 or 8. I thought it really was very good.
So I liked it more than everybody else, but I still like to hear that you all enjoyed it, because that was as I was watching it, I'll be honest, I was like, I wonder if they will enjoy this as much as I did, because one, the source material, but two, and I will touch upon this, the setting, because I can tell you there were a lot of true 90s references that weren't even fake. That was the opening bookstore of B. Dalton. That was a real thing. I don't know if it was real over in across the pond. But over here, that used to be like our premier bookstore in the malls.
Oh,
But the B. Daltons they no longer exist.
Right.
They were only around for the 90s and early 2000s. So when she's like working in the B. Daltons, like, oh my God, I know that. I was like, I'm in. Okay, let's do this. And even as she's putting books away, those were, aside from the author they put on it, those were actual Fear Street novels.
I noticed that because I'd Googled when I was Googling Fear Street to see what it was all about at the beginning, I saw the pictures of the novels, and then as soon as it came up, I was like, oh, so I wrote that down. I was like, they are the books.
I love those little tiny details because as a fan again of the books, I was like, oh, I like that little call out. That's great. I love it. But well, since I'm already talking, can I talk about my pros?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So I do have to, again, I'm calling out that soundtrack because in the first, maybe 10 minutes, I heard Nine Inch Nails Closer. I heard I'm Only Happy When It Rains, but Garbage. Love that, by the way. Machine Head by Bush. Oh, and there was one other one. Erg. But either way, I'm looking at the entire soundtrack, and it's just a 90s. It's just heaven. You got White Zombie, you got some Snoop Dogg, Cypress Hill. Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover by Sophie B. I'm telling you, this soundtrack is probably what elevated the movie more for me because I thought it was a good companion to the actual setting of the 90s. Especially, it was interesting to see, back then malls were the thing. So I loved seeing that. But I also liked how you could kind of take it to today where Shady Side was kind of the poorer town, kind of struggling. And you had Sunnydale, which was it Sunnydale? Oh gosh.
Yeah.
And they, it was rich. Everything's happy. Everything's gorgeous. It looks wonderful. And I loved that comparison.
Sunnyvale, sorry.
Sunnyvale. Thank you. Buffy's Sunnydale. That's why.
I know. I was thinking, where have I heard that? Sunnyvale and Shady Side.
Thank you. It's our first time. I promise, guys. We'll get this right. But so I loved that realism to it. And again, the characters, you got invested with them. I really felt there was growth. You felt connected. And I was crushed when, two of them were killed. But one of them was the coolest death ever. So, of course, like her, she had to go out with some gory freaking death because, my God, I was not expecting that. Because I don't think anybody was from R.L. Stein adaptation, but read the books. It gets pretty gross like that, too. So my horror heart was so excited, even though I knew a bagel slicer would never do that, not through a skull. But it's okay. I accepted it.
For me, I think the best thing that this film captured was that at any moment I did feel like any of them could die. And that's something incredibly rare for a horror movie and something that I haven't felt since I first started watching them. So because I genuinely did think that because they did open with killing Maya Hawke and watching the killer be so brutal, like the way that they you can tell that they added CGI to the killers just with the way that they move and function and the way that they look, but it's just enough to kind of add an extra power to them that they feel incredibly supernatural, but very present and scary and physical. So I really did think that at any moment, any one of the characters could die. And that is absolutely the biggest positive I can give any horror movie, which is that not even the main girl is safe because it's such a different kind of story. It's not a typical final girl type thing. So I really appreciated that. I love the atmosphere and I love the characters and I love Vills. They were very brutal. You can tell that they used a lot of practical effects for the blood, and what CG they did use was not noticeable. I like to a big degree. You can tell it was there, but it wasn't distracting. It added to the effect of the film, and really did just.
I appreciated that, Ben. Yeah, I'm with
Yeah.
you on that.
It was big.
So me, I really liked the world building. I liked the MCU style world building that this kind of gave with the, it's not, because I was like everything, obviously, because we know it's going to go back, 1978 and 1666, I believe, the other two. When they were mentioning anything from, where it was mainly Josh's characters mentioned anything from the past, I was like, right, everything down. I was like, okay, because I noticed that Kate said that her mum's sister, which I don't know why she just didn't say auntie, but her mum's sister had a connection with the Camp Nightwing for 1978, and I was like, oh, okay, let's remember that to see if that comes back into play, and talking about all the other killers and things like that. So that I really appreciated, because it's one of those things that you kind of think, oh, okay, well, look out for that, and then hopefully by the end of the trilogy, we'll kind of have a fuller idea of what's going on. But I really appreciated that. I liked a lot of the callbacks to films. So with the opening obviously being Scream, and I kind of got Scream 3 as well. There was a lot of Scream references throughout this, which obviously I appreciate because I love Scream. From obviously the kill to even when she was hiding in the Halloween store and they had the masks, and then he was one of the masks, which reminded me of Scream 3 with Sarah Darling in the costume department. The hospital gave me Halloween 2 vibes. There was a lot going on, but I think it did it well without it being, they did the 90s slasher idea thing well, but they didn't rely on it too much. Like they didn't go into the whole meta idea of horror films and all that, which is obviously quite big in the 90s. So I appreciate that they kind of made it a lot more grounded, but still were able to put those little exciting bits in. And yeah, like I say, I really, really liked the characters, and when they died, I literally wrote, they really did that to my girl Case. And then I put 2 seconds later, oh shit, Simon too. But
it was like so quick.
Yeah, because at one point, there was a part at the beginning, I was like, because obviously there was some, supporting characters, or not even supporting characters, background characters being killed throughout, and obviously that's how it works. But then I was kind of like, is anyone? There was a thought, and I was thinking, are there any of these people going to die? Like, there was a part of me that thought, is this? And then they went, oh, you want to see people die? Sure, here we go. And so I really appreciated that. And I also wrote in the first part, I don't know why, I love neon lighting. So for me, the lighting was very, very good. I enjoy nothing more than a good strong neon light in a dark room that gets me going on a Friday night. So that was very, very exciting. And yeah, as I said, sorry, go on, Yutaka.
Oh, I was just saying, it's very reminiscent of, over here we have a store called Spencer's.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you have it over there, but that's literally what that store is. It is neon lighting, just all random props, funny gags, all that stuff. And so as soon as I saw it, my first thought was, oh my God, that's a Spencer's. They're not really around that often, but that's truly what, if you were to walk, it could be, bright as day out, but you go into that store, it is all dark like that and it's neon lit. And so it just, again, it brought me back to the 90s, and I was like, oh my God. I loved that detail. So I love that you enjoy that, but no buts. It was just, it was a good callback to the 90s. It really was. I was living my teenage years watching this film.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And also one thing I appreciated as well, which I wrote down, was I appreciated that in the credits, the CG flies had names. They were called Paul, Christina, and Gilmero. So I want to shout out to those CGI flies.
I didn't.
I was watching it and I was like, CG? And then I was like, how have they got names if they're CG? I don't know. Anyway, I appreciated it. I was watching it and I was like, I like that. So, but yeah, I think that to me was an overall of my pros for it. I did really enjoy it. There was a lot to enjoy, but I do have questions which may come into the cons, but they may actually just be that I haven't been listening. So we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back and do our cons. Ooh.
You are listening to the Horoscope with Ben, George, and Yutaka.
And we're back. So now, 3 of us, we're going to talk about our cons for Fear Street 1994. And I have to say, I don't really have a lot in that it's just that the film, it felt like there was just something missing from it. Like, I don't think it can be, it's not the type of thing where it's like a classic. I think it's kind of close, but I think it had the potential to truly be like a 10 out of 10, like a pure balls to the walls, just epic throwback. And I think that probably has to do with maybe the director. Perhaps if they'd gotten someone a tad more experienced, then maybe it could have had that. But at the same time, it's not that big of a deal because what they did deliver was so solid that I don't really think it's that bad. But for me, I only have one other thing, which is that they set up this really interesting pastor character. The I mean, we only really saw him once, and I remember he had like the hair down and he looked incredibly terrifying. I just really hope that we get to see him and he's not just teased and we never get to explore that character, because he seems like he could be the scariest of all of the killers that they have. So honestly, that's pretty much it for Fear Street. I generally thought it was a enjoyable film that was just lacking like a certain magic, but it's very hard for movies to get that.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I've said it 12, about 50 times on this podcast. I really enjoyed it, but there was some things I was like, again, I agree with you, Ben. There was something lacking. I don't know what it was, but I was like, I'm enjoying the references. I'm enjoying the cast. I'm enjoying the story, which should become clearer throughout the three. But yeah, I don't know. I was watching and I was like, I'm waiting for there's just something. I don't know if it's real because it was at one time, it was like throwing so many references at once. And I was kind of like, okay, like trying to digest a lot of stuff at one time. And then it kind of slowed down. And then the midsection, like after, was it Sam's boyfriend, Peter, was killed, which I was like, oh shit, that really made me like jump in the hospital. There were elements that, again, may become clearer in the story. But so questions that I have, which maybe it's not even cons, maybe it's just questions. But I was like, okay, first of all, there was this whole situation that the killers were just after Sam. But then, so there were times when the group were just standing away from everybody and the killer would walk right past them. But then in the hospital, the killer killed Peter and like the two nurses. And I don't know if that was because they got in the way? But then why didn't they kill, are they that, maybe it's just me going too deep. Like when they were all waiting for them outside of the bathroom, like they just kind of ignored them. And I was just a little bit, that kind of got me a bit confused because I was like, wait, are they coming for just Sam, or are they, I felt like it needs to be more explained. I don't know if anyone can agree or disagree with me on that.
It was a plot hole. It was, I get they were following the blood, but again, yes, why did they kill these innocent bystanders in a sense? Like Peter, the boyfriend, I get because he was there, maybe literally in the killer's way.
Mm-hmm.
But the nurse that we saw her death, we're like, why? The other guy, I get though, because he tried to, interact. I think if you interact, maybe. But
yeah, I did think, yeah.
Yes, that was a plot hole.
And then the only other thing and again, this could be answered in the next two films, so I'm putting it out there now to see if when we come back to this, if it is. Why did Dina have a nosebleed before they went to the grave? Her nose started bleeding before she threw the stuff. And then, so I was like, oh, okay, what's going on here? This is unless it was because they were getting, I don't know, close to the grave, and maybe it's something to do, maybe, again, I don't know, because I don't know the source material, so maybe Dina has something to do with this. Maybe it is something to do with Dina rather than Sam, and Sam was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because I was just like, that I found that, I was like, oh, she started having nosebleed. And then Sam's nosebleed didn't start until she got to the grave. So unless it, again, it might be explored, it was the witch and she was trying to do it so that it put Dina off. And so this whole thing went into motion. That's a possibility. But again, that was just a question I had. I was like, oh, wait. And also I didn't really understand why Dina was about to throw the ice and then all over the car. But then when she did it and she kind of missed, she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I was like, what? You were going to do it anyway? Do you know what I mean? She was like, oh, and at the car swerved, but I was like, well, you were going to literally throw the ice at them, weren't you not?
Was it because it was just the ice and not the actual bucket? Because I'll say as a driver, maybe, because she threw the bucket too on accident.
Yeah.
So
Did
you
she?
would
Oh, I didn't realize
swerve.
she threw
You
the
would
bucket.
swerve out of the way because you wouldn't want that to hit your windshield. If it was just ice and water, that might make you jolt a little. But I'm pretty sure it was also because they actually threw the bucket, and so they didn't want that to hit the windshield.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't realize she threw the bucket. I thought she just swung it and then it went like, and she was like, oh, okay, so that makes more sense. All right, so ignore me, everybody. But apart from that, yeah, I think there wasn't a lot for me to be, I don't want to come and shit on this film because I did really enjoy it. And like I say, I think the world building and stuff is something that I'm really looking forward to explore. And I do agree with you, Ben, I'd like to see with the Pastor character. But I did note down that Pastor was in 1666. So
right.
I assume and they said he was the first one. So maybe that is, hopefully we will. And I did think, yeah, because the other three, they showed them and they were the main guys. And I did think, oh, why aren't they showing this guy? And I thought, oh, okay.
And the milkman.
Oh, the milkman as well, yeah. But then I don't know if we'll go back. Because the next one, it's the Jason looking guy, isn't it, with the axe? So, but yeah, in terms of the directing, I kind of enjoyed. I had a little Google because I didn't realize. I was like wanting to know who's Lee Janik, who directed this, and she only done a couple of things previously to this. She did one film called Honeymoon with Rose Leslie and Harry Treadway, and I was like, that name rings a bell. It turns out I have watched that film. I didn't realize until I watched the trailer. And I was like, this film really rings a bell. And then I had a little quick Google and I was like, I've definitely seen this film. I would recommend maybe watching that film. It's weird, very, very weird. The acting's really great and there's some like gross elements to it. And also, fun fact, she directed 2 of the Scream TV series episodes. Yutaka, you haven't watched, have either of you watched the Scream series?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I didn't watch the season 3 they did because they left it on a cliffhanger.
Well, it was also poorly done.
Yeah. Scream Resurrection was dreadful. They were like, it's all right, we've got the original mask. It was like, great, but you haven't got any story.
It was awful.
It was atrocious.
About the director, though, she is a Scream fan.
Yeah.
So I caught the references.
So there was a lot. But yeah, and I went back this morning and watched those 2 episodes to see.
Which ones were they?
So it was season 1, episode 7, which is called In the Trenches. So in that episode, it is the one where they go to. I literally just watched it before, and I'm like, what did I watch? Oh, it's the one with the abandoned. They're in the bowling alley. Bowling alley.
That's a great one. Yeah, that's very good.
And I was thinking, oh, this makes sense because there was about 25 different abandoned locations in this film. So kind of, she likes the abandoned. So I really enjoyed that. And at the end, and that was a kind of this was
that when the boyfriend died in that?
Yeah, and it was the thing, and then that reminded me. Then I understand Kate's death now because it was very much like that.
Yes,
with the thing coming at him, and it was quite. Obviously, they didn't show the whole thing because that was only a 15, but they showed like the blood splatter and stuff. That I remember watching that, and I was like, Jesus,
that was good. Like nobody, you expected it, but that was brutal.
Yeah. So it was that one, and then season 2, episode 9, The Orphanage, which was one where they were at like a big rave in like an abandoned warehouse, and that the killer was the abandoned place.
They find Piper's body at the end.
Yes, they do. Yeah, but also I thought this gave me a bit of It Follows vibes as well. I don't know if anyone else got that. Like there was, especially with the whole thing with it starting with that kind of with the car and then being chased. So I just kind of gave me a bit of those vibes. Overall, I think it was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed it. Does anyone have any other final thoughts on the film before we move on?
I've got some cons.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We're totally cool, guys.
This shows the patriarchy.
Yes.
So I think when you guys were talking about there's part of the story missing and everything, one thing I was hoping they would kind of touch upon because they alluded to it. You remember when the sheriff wrote that little note and they never really. So that character, Nick Good, is also going to be somewhat of a main character in the 1978. Honestly, which they didn't really touch upon, the whole the good family goes all the way back to in general in the series. So when we see the 1666, I believe he's going to be the pastor
Oh,
or
okay.
Solomon. So I just wish they would have kind of talked a little bit more about the good family, because that's a huge part of between the fear family and the good family, and they just didn't kind of give that. So I was like, well, to me as somebody who knew the material, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I get it. But I was like, you could have given more on that, because that I think that would have added to the story. And then there was one maybe technical issue, and maybe it was just me that I thought was kind of silly. But when they were going through Sunnyvale and they were looking at all the houses and they had the lights on, I'm like, I can clearly tell it's just a miniature and you're just driving. Like, it felt a little, I was like, okay, this is a little silly now, guys. You could have just found some real town America. I was like, that. And it just looked a little kooky, but I got what they were trying to go for. And the other con though, because I feel like I think it was interesting that the brother had all these, articles, and he was following it, and he's in this old ass AOL chat room. That made me laugh. But I'm like, oh, okay. Like, are you talking? I don't know. That was just that was odd. That would be the only cons. I liked the directing, and I say that because it felt like it was kind of one of her first maybe big films. And she is, I believe, directing all three. And so that to me is also kind of nice, because I feel that hopefully there'll be some consistency. And my biggest con, though, I will say, I really wanted to see more of the dude with the axe. He was terrifying. And I love that, which I'm sure we'll see in the next one. But
he was. Actually, I just remembered something when you were talking about Josh. One thing that really bothered me, and maybe it's because, and I did Google their ages, but this Josh and Kate relation, like romantic thing, he looked about 12 to me, and she looked about 18, and I was like, this is bothersome to me, because I don't know how old he's supposed to be. I Googled it. The actor, Benjamin, is 18. So, but I don't know. He just looks really young, and I was like, I thought at first they're going for that whole the younger, the brother who's in love with the friend. But then when they did like that scene in the toilet, I was like, ooh, I don't know. Again, maybe because he just looked so young.
They could have filmed it before pandemic.
Yeah, I know. So I was kind of like, this is just a little, I don't know. I just felt it was a little bit, but I really liked Simon's character as well. I thought he was really funny when he kept referring to the Amy Winehouse looking ghost, saying that she was so hot.
Yeah.
I was like, I like him. He's really funny with the things.
I didn't want to criticize the directing too much, because if it is as a first time film, actually it's pretty amazing. I didn't mean to come off too bad on that. It's probably just maybe the fact that it's one of a trilogy, that maybe it's missing. Maybe we'll have more answers soon. Maybe that's it. But visually, story-wise, this film was very well directed, and credit to the director, who did an incredible job for her first major feature.
Oh, definitely. And I that film that she did, Honeymoon, I was watching.
That's on Netflix, right? Because I think I need to watch that.
And
I know what you're talking about.
It's 99p on Apple TV, if you've got that. But I watched a couple of clips before, because I was like, I want to refresh myself, and it wasn't necessarily anything to do with like the directing of that. Like some of the shots and stuff were really, really good. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm coming off like, Lee, if you're listening, we think it's great, and we can't wait to see the next two.
Yes.
And if you want to come onto the podcast, but yeah, like I say, it wasn't the situation with Honeymoon wasn't the directing; it was more the writing. But actually, one of the writers of Honeymoon is said co-writer on Fear Street. So maybe that's the writer that is the one who's picking up the plot holes. No, I'm joking. But yeah, so sorry, because I cut off Yutaka before. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we move on? Ben?
It was a great ride, and I cannot wait to spend the next few weekends diving into Fear Street and enjoying it. It's going to be a great thing to look forward to.
Same as well. I thought it was a wonderful first start. For those who don't know the story, I think it was like you said, the world building. I just thought was it was so good. I loved the characters. I think you'll really enjoy it. And I do love that part of in the books too. Never get attached to anyone. And so, like, then you called that out perfectly because, yes, in the books, no one's safe. So I'm excited to see the next one, which I felt that trailer. I can't believe I'm going to say this. It gave a little bit away in terms
Oh,
of here's the main character, but we're going to show you her possibly get killed. I mean, that looked.
yeah,
I mean, if she survives it, she survives it. But I was like, guys, come on.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, I loved the trailer. I mean, I love Sadie Sink. I think she's fantastic.
yeah.
Yes.
And as soon as I saw her in the trailer for um, series 2 of Stranger Things, I was like, she hasn't even spoken in this trailer. I'm obsessed with her. So, and I really love Max's character in Stranger Things. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what she does here. Obviously, she's a lot more grown up now, and to see her sort of stand alone-ish. Obviously, there's her sister as well, but for her to not be in such a huge group of incredible actors will be really interesting to see. But yeah, I do agree that end bit. I was like, wait, which sister's the one that survived? Because one of them survived and one didn't. Is it this one? I was like, I hope it's Sadie. But it seems like she's going to have a big role in that anyway. Regardless.
She's definitely a lead for sure.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what Friday the 13th vibes and other 70s films we get from that. And also, you know, American Horror Story 1984 as well recently, last year did their camp one. So I'm really looking forward to, look like you're about to do a, what's the name that? I thought you were going to do a whistle tone then, Yutaka.
I did. Oh, no. I did want to say before we transition, who to the next topic, I have to know who was your favorite of the killers?
Oh, you know, I'm gonna say Skullface because where this dude, I really liked the other guy, the axe killer, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. I think the girl was the least interesting for me, so I'm gonna say Skull Mask.
Ben,
I will say the girl didn't really actually get any kills. I don't think. I don't think Stark kill anyone. So that probably would rank her last, but I loved her design. I loved all of their designs. The reason I'm going to choose Skullface over the dude with the axe, who's the Jason, is because Skullface, we really got a great sense of power from him. He had the most amount of kills, and he was the opening act. You know, you really got a sense of dread whenever you saw him, because he genuinely did terrify me. The way he moved so quickly, the way he was just able to stab people like it was nothing, because it was nothing, like he wasn't alive, but it was still such a raw power that I found terrifying. But I also found the guy with the axe. He was a hulking beast of a killer, and I think I'm looking forward for him to have his own movie in 78. But I would rank Skullface for 94 as probably number one.
And this is where we differ. Oh my gosh. I love the guy with the axe. I know he wasn't as big of a presence, but when he showed up and the way he moved, I just felt more terrified. I loved the that wasn't like the mask, but like this burlap sack over and the way he held the axe. I was like, oh, that's kind of terrifying. I loved the skull mask, but I didn't like the design. I truly didn't, and that's why I was like, whereas I felt the Axeman, we'll just call him for now, he had that I don't know. This is where maybe I'm just a little too gay, but I'm like, those jeans fit a little too tight and that fits a little too tight. I was like, okay, all right. But I liked his design from top to bottom because he looked terrifying. Whereas Skullface I was still creeped out because I love that opening too, which total Scream vibes as we're all talking. And one thing that I do, even though she did get killed, obviously, I loved that some of the things that the characters did to try and get away was smart. I did want to call that out when she kicked off the gate of the at the shop.
Yeah,
that like smart. Yes, like they were just. It wasn't like this. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to explain it, but they use their surroundings and they used it to where I thought I would probably do that too. I don't know. I felt that was real. I enjoyed that.
I agree with that because there was a point, that part when she goes under, I was like, oh, about to get a Tatum and she's about to be like crushed. And then when she didn't, I was like, oh, okay. I like that. So that's what I mean by the fact that, like I'd sort of touched on earlier, that they used those homages, but they kind of took them and went, actually, no.
Yes. So I know we're talking cons, but or no, we're on killers now. But I don't know. I loved seeing that, but I loved the Axeman. So, and yes, the girl loved the design, but you're right, Ben. I kind of felt she was somewhat pointless. I don't know. Love the design.
And I think I'm interested to see why they went with her as the third ghost. If we're going to be getting the Jason Axeman killer in the next movie, and it's going to be based on him, then should maybe, if we're only getting 3, I thought maybe the pastor, but maybe they want to keep the pastor for the finale to be like, and they just want to.
Will she be a counselor? Is she young enough to be like a counselor at the camp? 78.
Ooh, I don't know. Maybe
she was 60, wasn't she? Though, wasn't she? I mean, like,
I'm not sure. Yeah, check.
But it looks like the character was
Ruby
Rachel
Lane.
Thompson. Oh, Ruby Lane.
Ruby Lane, 1965. I did write it down. I'm sorry. I thought I did.
I was wrong. That gives.
Is that difficult to say?
Yeah, it was. It hurt.
She might claim them again. I think this will be interesting to come back to when it's completed and we can say we said all this, and actually George was wrong because he said so much stuff that came to light. But yeah, again, for me, just final thoughts. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the next 2 go. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with our horror favorite adaptations.
Don't forget to follow us at horoscope_pod on Twitter and Instagram to keep up to date with all our devilish deeds.
Could I possibly trouble somebody for a glass of water?
And we're back. All right. So now we're actually going to talk about our favorite or the best adaptations from book to film. And so I will let Ben start because I know Ben. I already know his favorite.
Do you?
Well, see, here's the thing. You'd be surprised when you look into the classics of horror, how many films are based off of books and other source materials. So you have The Exorcist, that's based off of a book. The Silence of the Lambs, which is one of my favorite horror films and also one of my favorite films, period, is based off of a book. Volumes upon volumes, obviously everything Stephen King. So it was actually very hard to kind of find one that was a little bit unconventional. But I did go with the Stephen King adaptation, and I did not go with what would probably be my favorite horror film, because I'm going to save that for later on down the road. But
don't you dare pick my choice. Oh gosh. What? Well, can I guess since
I hope I didn't. It is, yes, a Mike Flanagan film.
Oh, no,
it is a Netflix film. Gerald's Game is probably my favorite horror adaptation. It is, when I first saw that movie, I was completely blown away. Carla Gugino did a phenomenal job. Really and to have a film set in one location be as entertaining and as tense as it was, you really needed a great script, a great director, and a great actress to sell it. And that film had all of that. I watched it maybe 4 times since, and every time it does hit all the same notes. You get the same sort of sense of relief when you're supposed to feel relief, or terror when you're supposed to feel terror, and desperation when you're supposed to feel that. And I really thought that Gerald's Game captured everything it was supposed to and was an excellent adaptation. So for me, the best horror adaptation is Gerald's Game from 2017.
You look like you're about to explode, Yutaka.
I hated that film.
Did you hate it?
Absolutely.
How did you hate that movie?
I thought it was awful. Hold on, let me first say though, I thought the acting, I thought Carla Gugino, she's always phenomenal. I can't think of a time where I don't enjoy her. So she was not the problem of the movie. The problem, I think, was some of the writing, but also, and this brings me back to kind of like the Stand mini, not the recent one, but the 90s miniseries. Like when that guy with the weird eyes was just hulking minute, I was like, that looks kooky. It doesn't fit with the setting. I know it's with the story, but it just didn't work. And it just took me out of the element. And I thought it was just silly as hell. I give them props though, because it is probably still the only film that's done a proper and disgusting degloving of the hand. That I thought was phenomenal. But sorry, Ben, I didn't like that film. So I
That
did
is
not.
okay.
You didn't choose mine, so I'm okay with that.
Perfect. Well, Yutaka, since you're all talking about your choice, why don't you go next?
Well, if you hate this film, that's on you. But I went also with a Stephen King film and book, and I chose Misery.
Knew you were going to say that.
It
Love that film.
was. It was. I know it's considered a horror film, but that was more sheer terror and captivity and isolation and man. And I mean, I think James Caan was great, but Kathy Bates was just phenomenal, and she deserved that Oscar. And she's one of the few that I believe has won an Oscar in a horror role. So bravo! But the book is great. I recommend that and The Stand to read. Don't watch the Stand film or miniseries. They're shit. They will always be shit. Read the book. But Misery is my favorite adaptation. It's something I can always watch, and every time it still kind of just gives me a little bit of chills because Kathy Bates is so so kind, and then suddenly she'll snap and
Yeah.
the part where she breaks is oh god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. So that's mine. But I guess Ben, any thoughts on mine since I ripped yours to shreds?
No, I love that film. I really do. And if we all go with the Stephen King, I do have a backup one that I can do. So,
Ooh.
George, what are your thoughts on Misery and Gerald's Game, and what is your favorite horror adaptation?
So, Gerald's Game, I really enjoyed, but I have always loved Carla
Gugino.
Carla Gugino. I think she's fabulous. I was obsessed with her since she was in Spy Kids. And so I really, really enjoyed that film. My friends were a bit like, oh, this is a bit weird. But I was like, it's Stephen King, so you expect something odd. And I understand the situation with the guy at the end was a bit bizarre. But I was like, do you know what? I enjoyed this film. The fact that it was one room and it was basically all set in there, I thought was really, really good. And basically a huge monologue I really, really enjoyed. So I appreciate that one, Ben. I like that it was a bit of a left wing from the many Stephen King adaptations, most of which have been terrible. Yutaka, I really love Misery. I know that you really resonate with the character, Kathy Bates's character. So I understand why you chose that. But yeah, I really like that. I only actually watched Misery probably about 5 years ago. But I understand. Well, one, don't forget I'm younger than you, so I can't say that anymore because Ben's the youngest. But so I watched. I'd heard of it before I'd seen the film or read the book, and so I watched the film and then read the book after. But I really, really enjoyed it, and I kind of enjoyed it that way because I really liked imagining. The more obviously there was more in the book, and imagining Kathy Bates kind of doing those other things, I was kind of like, do you know what, this is, I kind of like the way that I did that. So I really like both of them. I'm going with a non-Stephen King book.
Ooh, okay.
And I'm going with one of my favorite horror books of all time, and that is Rosemary's Baby. In terms of from the book to the adaptation, Roman Polanski's film, it was one of the best adaptations I've seen specific to the book. Like if you read the book and you watch the film, it is literally page by page. I was like, damn, it is fantastic. I love that film. It's one of my favorite classic horror films of all time. Just the build up within the film and in the book of you really just until the very end, you have no idea what is first time viewers, no idea what is going on. And you are like, what in the world is happening here? And you can really, especially if you've seen the film and want to read the book, it's page by page. You can see the film going. You can see Mia Farrow in your head. And fun fact, this isn't sponsored, but if Audible want to sponsor us, on Audible, you can listen to the audiobook and it is actually narrated by Mia Farrow.
I will do that. I will do that then.
Fantastic. There are a couple of others that nearly Stephen King made it into my, second, which was because I've got a soft spot for this film, and that is the 2007 movie The Mist.
Oh God.
I love that film so much. I cry every time and I really like it. And only not just because Carol from The Walking Dead's in it, but I just think it's actually it's about 5 characters from The Walking Dead, sorry. But yeah, I don't know. It was one of those films that I was like, when I was young, and I kind of like alien films as well, which we'll probably delve into at some point later in the podcast when we talk about film themes and styles, genres, whatnot. But yeah, that was my second. But I thought, do you know what? I think everyone's going to go for a Stephen King. Also, I did have The Exorcist, which I know that Ben mentioned earlier, and The Invisible Man by G.H. Wells, because talking about the 2020 film, in terms of adaptation, I'm not saying that it's anything like the book. What I'm saying is to take that source material and to turn it into that movie they did, I think was really, so they were my little honorable mentions. But yeah, for me, Rosemary's Baby is my top. What do you guys think on that one?
I do love where you said both your favorite and your worst, and when you said Rosemary's Baby, both men are like, oh, yeah, that's a good choice, and then your worst were like, yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. I honorable mention, well, actually the worst would be another Stephen King, The Stand. If you've ever read that book is terrifying, and it is so good. And they've done 2 iterations, both miniseries, both shit. Do not watch them. I don't care if it's got your favorite actor or actress. No, bye. It sucked. Read the book. And then for second, as Ben had already mentioned, to Silence of the Lambs. That was, I mean, good Lord. And they even just did a wonderful TV series, Clarice, in my opinion. But Silence of the Lambs is right there.
Rosemary's Baby was an excellent choice. I didn't even realize that was based off of a book, believe it or not. So I might actually read that. That seems like a very interesting reading experience.
Definitely.
There are 2 that I don't think anyone has mentioned that kind of odd, but I understand why they haven't. But it will be Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House. Like when you talk about, I think one of the finest pieces of supernatural horror ever put to screen. I know it's a TV show, but still just incredible. And the turn of the screw has had a lot of different it's had a lot of different adaptations, and it's inspired a lot of different films, some terrible, some really good. I love The Haunting of Bly Manor, but I also think The Others was incredible.
Yes.
Like really, really good.
The Others was based off of a novel?
Yeah.
It took inspiration from The Turn of the Screw. It's not really locked to it. Like it doesn't, I don't think The Haunting of Bly Manor or The Others really marry themselves to The Turn of the Screw, but they do take inspiration from the bare bones of the story and they run with it. And I think they both did very interesting takes on it.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, you see, there you go. I didn't expect, let's say, Gerald's Game to come up out of the Stephen King. Actually, out of the Stephen King books, if we were going to go Stephen King books, I didn't actually think about those 2 from you guys specifically. Anyway, I was hoping that nobody was going to say it. because that's never been made right. You can say what you want about the first one, but part 2 was dreadful.
Oh, the first one was great, but that part 2, yeah, it ruined everything.
Yeah, and Tim Curry was the only good
whole
thing
thing.
about the miniseries. So I think we can agree on that. But yeah, obviously, you know, Stephen King is the obvious one, but none of the It films have anything about the Turtle King. So, you know, because no one wants to really go down that road. But I think Stephen King stuff as a whole is quite difficult. I don't think anyone's really, I know that we're both talking about those 2 films, but I don't think there's ever been one that I could solidly say, yes, this is, I think he's got, his style is really needs to be read rather than, I think it's very difficult to visualize some of his things.
I think Mike Flanagan did a really great job.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was really I actually preferred The Haunting of Bly Manor, which I know is a controversial, but that's because, well, I'm sorry, I did. I thought
we'll talk about that eventually. I think if we ever talk about Flanagan, if we ever talk about
is
horror
it
TV shows.
Tia Miller?
Tiana Miller is the greatest thing that's ever happened to acting and television and that series. And she made me cry. And she watched my reactions and she was like, "Oh my god, you made me cry." So anyway, that's the story for another. Don't forget, guys, you can tweet us your favorite horror adaptations and let us know what you thought, and we can debate that on Twitter and Instagram. Well, that is it for today's episode of the Horoscope, our premiere episode. I don't know about you guys, but that was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to, of course, thanks everyone for listening. And you can join us again next week where we'll be continuing the Fear Street talk and reviewing and dissecting Fear Street 1978, Fear Street Part 2. As well as that, of course, it is going to be set at Camp Nightwing or Wing Night. I was like, I didn't know if I was making it up that it was Nightwing. But it's going to be set, of course, in one of horror's classic locations of a camp. And so in honor of that, we are going to be also discussing our favorite camp located horror films from the likes of Friday the 13th, The Cabin in the Woods. We're going to talk about it all. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Plus, if you haven't already, go and follow us on social media. We're actually on Twitter and Instagram at horoscope_pod, because somebody took Horoscope Pod. I'm going to find out who they are and slightly push them away. You can follow us there to keep up with all the latest information and news. And also, if you have any questions or any thoughts on Fear Street, you can tweet us with the hashtag horoscope and we will read them out in the episodes and we can talk and see if we agree or if we don't agree. It'll be something really exciting. So once again, thank you very much for listening and we'll see you next week. So it's goodbye from me.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys. See you next week.
You have been listening to the Horoscope. See you next time.